Hello everyone, my name is Brendan, along with my co-host Primo. This is the new podcast where we sit with all types of creators and talk about the maker journey. Welcome to Coffee with Creators. During today's episode, we are drinking the Brews Lee Blend by the Bean Bastard Coffee Roastery in Buffalo, New York. With stone fruit, caramel, and kiwi notes, this coffee is sure to kick you up a notch. We are also excited to tell you, if you'd like more creative content by Mason, myself, and today's guest, head on over to patreon.com/coffeewithcreators and join our Founders Club today. Not only does this unlock access to extended versions of today's interview, but you will have access to exclusive content only available to our Patreon supporters. So guys, we're welcoming our first guest, Parker Litchfield of Stock and Barrel. Say hi.
What's up, guys?
How's it going, man? Good to see you.
I'm just peachy. I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you, man. You're our first guest on the show, and we're super excited about that because not only does a lot of people look up to you, but I've looked up to you too in my business as a leather worker, and it was kind of a no-brainer to just have you on our show and have you as our first guest. So we have a lot of stuff to talk to you about today and a lot of good stuff that I think people are just going to get some good information out of. So I hope you're ready for a few awesome questions.
I'm excited. Let's do this.
Heck to the yes. All right, man. Well, so the first thing that our viewers want to know is if they don't know you, what's your background? Where are you from? What do you do? All that kind of good stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'm from Utah, specifically Ogden, Utah, and my background mostly comes from a creative background. I love graphic design and video production. And I worked in that field for a little bit doing some just random jobs. I worked graphic design for a startup company here in Ogden, and did that for a couple years and learned a lot as far as how to use Adobe Illustrator and things like that. I mean, that took me from more of just like a hobbyist messing around with Adobe to like really using it in a professional setting. And I ended up later working for a company called Tamrac, where it's a camera bag company. They've actually been around since the 70s, and just a big company that had kind of needed a wake-up call, and the Ogden company called Guru Gear had purchased them and brought them on board, and it was kind of a fun project to be able to kind of wake up the brand. And we did a lot of new design and photography work, and overhauled the website, and that was a really fun thing to be a part of. I got to participate in a lot of photographers' workshops, hang out with a lot of pros who just like really know what they were doing, and I learned so much being with them and being in that environment. Unfortunately, the company had kind of a mass layoff, and I was a part of that, and so I was. I'm sure we'll get into this later, but I was kind of put into a position where I decided, well, do I need to, go find another job, or do I get into this, try Stock and Barrel out full time? And so, just to back up a little bit, all through the, since about 2012, I had just been playing with leather on the side, just in my home, messing with it, trying to get to know certain techniques and really learn to love it. So my background is in leather craft, mostly, I would say, but really, what drives me is just being creative in all forms. I love, the photography, video, leathercraft, just another avenue for me to express creativity.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally. I feel like, something that I found out when I started my business too was it's not just the one thing. Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to start a business, I think it's important to have all those skills. And like you said, you were in the graphic design and the photography and everything else that comes with it. And when I started my business, it was the same kind of thing where it was like, wow, I know how to do all these things now. It's not just the one. And I actually found, oddly enough, it's super weird because I'm kind of going in a different direction myself right now, where I actually found out that I enjoyed more of the photography and the videography and the graphics and the website building and all that stuff. I actually enjoyed that more than I did sometimes making the product. So it was really cool to see that evolve. And then I thought, well, you know, if I grew this really huge someday, would I be making the leather things or would I be doing the social media aspect of it? I would get to choose what I want to do. So it's really, really cool to see the fact that you do all that yourself as well. So you built your own website too?
I did, yeah. I had a friend originally, this was, I mean, I think it was before Shopify. I'm not sure how new they are, but yeah, I had a friend build me a site on on WordPress using WooCommerce, and it was a little bit more complex than I was comfortable with. And I'd have to, you know, employ his help a lot to help manage the site. And so eventually when I came across Shopify, I was just, you know, it was a game changer because it's very user friendly, and, you know, they've got every app you could possibly need to help grow your business. So yeah, so I built it on Shopify, but as far as like all the photography, video, that was all done by me. I do want to give a lot of credit to my wife. She's a huge, just creative genius in my opinion, and she's a big, you know, she's a big, you know, influence behind all of this. So she doesn't get enough credit, unfortunately.
I definitely see a whole lot of it in the love that you guys have for each other, and it's really, really cool to bring people into that sort of a thing, because when you're starting a business like this, if everybody's not on board, it's not fun when you're the only one wanting to do what you want to do, and you just seem crazy because you have this nuts idea that nobody gets, and then you don't have anybody else on board with you. That's an even tougher road to deal with if you don't have your family backing you. So I think it's really, really cool that you have that. So, and plus I think your shop is in your backyard, right?
It is, yeah. That's a new development. That was part of my mission to keep myself closer to home and be with my family more. I had a shop in downtown Ogden, and you know, that was around the time when I was still producing all of our orders, and I was sitting at the sewing machine for 13, 14 hours a day, sometimes more than that. And I'd go days without seeing my kids because I'd leave the house before they were awake. I'd come home when they were already asleep, and it was I felt like I had missed the boat. I'm like, this isn't what entrepreneurship should be about, or if it is, I don't want anything to do with it, you know, because it was just a really tough position to be in. And so every move I've made just within the last couple of years has been to get away from that, where you know, we've outsourced a lot of our production and brought the shop here at home, so I get to eat lunch with the family. They actually come out and see me like 70% of the day. Whit's actually out here working most of the day, so it was a good move for us to be able to stay together, and you know, it was a good move.
Do you feel like, I mean, I know that a lot of entrepreneurs and people that make things, when they first start, I mean, where was your first shop that you actually started making stuff, Brendan?
In my kitchen.
Right. Same thing for me is I had, you know, it was in the living room or in the kitchen. There was even one point where the Primo Workshop leather was in a closet at the end of our hallway in our tiny apartment. And it was literally a closet that was like 5 by 5. And I was trying to crank out as much as I could from there. And you know, the funny part is I kept on thinking to myself, you know, I got to have a big shop someday. I got to have this big place that I can spread out and have all that. And then the opposite happened, which was I felt like I never saw my family, when before I saw my family too much, because it was almost like if your kids can run in on you any 5 seconds, you know, like you're kind of, your focus can't be there all the time. So you have to have a happy medium, I think, which you found, I think, with your shop being in the backyard. So
I think we've gotten close. Yeah, we've gotten a lot closer, because it is difficult. Around the time that we you know, jumped out of our lease in our shop in Ogden, we actually ended up moving everything into the basement of our house until this was built. And so that was one of the more difficult, like, probably few months of trying to run the business, because I loved the space. I loved being in the house and being more involved with the family, but it just got really difficult. I just felt really torn, because I'm either being a bad dad or I'm giving up on my business, and you really shouldn't have to choose between those. And so
No, no.
I think that having a little bit of distance definitely makes things better. Even just stepping outside and being, you know, on our property gives us a little bit more space to where I can get things done, but I still get to see them. And when I do see them, I get to actually give my attention to them and you know, really be a dad. So it's a fine line, and it's a really tough thing to draw, but I think we're getting close.
Plus, you get to have your own lunch at home and all that kind of good stuff. That also saves a whole bunch of money. And, you know, entrepreneurs, is every little penny that you can save is the best thing that you can do. So going out to lunch every day is not a very easy thing on your pocket. So
no, it's not great for your health either. I was in a bad position. This time of my life when I was working that long, you know, I was actually eating breakfast out. I'd grab McDonald's on the way into the shop because I left so early and I didn't want to wake anyone up. So I'd grab breakfast and I'd grab lunch while I'm out there. And then I'd end up grabbing dinner before I came home. And next thing you know, I had Chinese food, McDonald's, and, you know, who knows what else for lunch. And so it was, I mean, this was going on for a long time. It was bad for my health. It was bad for our finances. I just didn't really know what else to do at that point. I'm not one of those, I can't like prepare meals, you know, for the whole day and get it all ready before I leave. I was constantly working. Anything that took my mind away from either giving my family attention or not, or working, just felt like just completely out of the question. And so it was in a bad place. Like, we're definitely in a much better position. I get to eat lunch with these guys, and I'm saving money on gas. You know, we share all the utilities with garbage and Wi-Fi and all that kind of stuff. So it was a good move. I'm still pretty happy about it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah. So the next question that we have for you, then it kind of goes into that, is about transitioning from a 9-to-5 to what you have now. So what would you say the process was like moving from the job that you had before, getting laid off, you know, figuring out, like, is this something that I want to chase this dream? And what did that process look like for you?
Oh man, I mean, it wasn't easy. In fact, sometimes I think I'm guilty of doing this, but a lot of times on social media, entrepreneurship gets presented in you know, a way that's just a little too pretty and a little too glamorous. And I will never deny that it is by far a better life for me. I love it. I love the flexibility. I love not having to answer to somebody else. It's just, it matches my personality and the lifestyle I want to live. But anyone who tells you it's easy and it's just going to be this, you know, you're just going to be skating along with no issues, it's really misrepresentative.
Right.
So
definitely.
I originally got, when I got laid off, I remember just standing out in the parking lot of the building we worked at, and I was almost in tears. I was like, I have to call Whit and let her know what happened. And I was like, what do I do to, like, we had just recently had a baby. We had bought a home pretty recently, so we had a mortgage, we had, you know, hospital bills, we had all kinds of things on our plate. And I just remember thinking, like, if I have to bear this bad news that I just got laid off, I need to at least be able to tell her that I'm going to go get something else and we're going to be just fine.
Right.
But it definitely, you know, we had long conversations about it, and we both wanted to build something for ourselves. She was just so supportive. She just, like, she was the one kind of driving the decision to make Stock and Barrel work. She's like, you know, I think we'll both be happier in the end if we can just make it work. And so, you know, Stock and Barrel had already had a little bit of traction at that point. It wasn't a total hobby. I mean, we were doing, you know, we were moving, you know, a few wallets a week in sales, you know, and a few bags here and there. And but you know, it was only happening at nights when I'd gotten home from my 9-to-5, and it hadn't gotten the attention that it really needed to get any kind of traction. And so I kept, you know, I really felt like if we were able to dedicate our time and just go balls to the wall, you know, give everything we have to make it work, I knew that we could do it. And luckily she had the same mentality, and so we did it. And it was tough. I mean,
you have done it, my friend. You have done it.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know if there ever is a point where you're like, like finally made it. You know, it doesn't feel like that yet. We're still just wallowing through mud, just doing everything we can to get through and make things work. But in the end, we're able to support our family. We're paying our mortgage. You know, we have, you know, we actually have a little more flexibility than I used to. You know, we travel every now and then, and so in my mind, I feel like we've made it to that degree. However, other people might look at our finances and be like, yeah, you guys are a nightmare.
I think that's a big misconception, though, is, you know, like when I first started, you know, in Leathercraft and on Instagram, follower base is like a huge thing for people's perspective. You know, they look at this. I remember contacting another leather worker, and he had something like 40,000 followers, and I was like, man, you must be raking it in. And he was like, not as much as you think, dude. Like, it's not, you know, follower base doesn't really equate to making a ton of money. And so I think a lot of people, like you said, it makes this, you know, Instagram with how pretty it is and how you present yourself to make yourself look like you're just some successful business owner or whatever. To me, making it is being able to pay my mortgage and being able to support my family. And like, you know, Brendan and I always talk about when we're here just goofing off in the shop, we're like, this is what we get to do. We get to not sit at a 9-to-5 desk every single day. Yeah. And we get to come do what we want to do and make the content that we want to make and still pay the bills. And, you know, honestly, that's the biggest thing for us. So,
well, and that was always a struggle for me. It was like I would see these people who had a huge follower base and I somehow could never reach that. But then I was like, well, it kind of doesn't matter because I'm paying all of my bills and I'm making good money, and yet no one on social media would know it because I have so few followers. So it's so easy to like compare yourself to someone else and be like, oh, I'm not doing as well as them, when you got to really just compare yourself to yourself. Like, am I paying my bills, like you say?
Right. It's such a huge thing to be able to do that and do what you love and not have to hate your job. So
yeah, I mean, to me, that is the reward. I know a lot of people have vision of just trying to get the biggest dollar sign they can get, you know, as much money as possible, as many zeros on that check. And for me, I think that's just an inherent difference in people. I think some people, you know, really strive for that. And for me, that just never was an end goal of mine. The only reason those dollar signs need to be there is so that I can support the life we want to live, in the sense that, you know, we live in a home that we love, and I'm actually doing something that I love doing, and that we get to give our kids a good life. But as far as just, you know, accruing money just for the sake of having money, it was never a big driving factor for me. But I will agree that, I mean, I would have to say one of my biggest mistakes early on in the business was I focused so much on the Instagram numbers, like you guys were saying. It's hard not to do that because a lot of people put so much weight in it. You know, when you're talking about who you want to work with, network with, it's all that number above the follower count has a really big, it plays a really big role in, you know, whether or not someone's going to work with you or wants to be involved with what you're doing. And it's kind of sad that that's the dividing line, and not what the content's actually about, or you know, what kind of person you are, what kind of business you're running. But it is a big factor. And so I became obsessive with it. I mean, that's all I thought about, to the point where I didn't even care what the sales were. I only cared about how many likes I got that day, or, you know, how many followers we were growing every month. And it got to a point where, I mean, I remember there was like a very specific point in our business where I just went, you know, this is interesting. It seems like, you know, the growth of our followers doesn't match up to the growth of our revenue. And I remember thinking, like, I really need to change my focus. And what's interesting is when I started pulling away from focus as trying to get followers, that seemed to be when the following really started growing. Because I think that having a more healthy, organic relationship with your followers, and not this kind of like desperate, hungry, you know, strive to get followers, I think that's what really makes people want to be a part of your story and be a part of your life, you know, is that more honest relationship. So yeah,
absolutely. I struggle with that a lot too, because like when I first started, I would look at people that had less followers than me, and they had like 1,000 likes on a picture, and I had like 80, and I was like, how is this even possible? And then, you know what I did, as I started looking into like, I got to find the algorithms, you know, like why is it this way? Am I posting the wrong hashtags? Am I posting at the right part of the day? Like all this kind of stuff. And I did the math on it, and I posted it up, and I maybe got a couple more likes on the picture, and then I realized, who really cares? Like, who cares? What really matters to the entrepreneur that's starting a business is the money coming in. It's not, you know, like, I mean, if that doesn't translate into sales, then it doesn't really matter. It just doesn't matter.
Well, it's true.
And like for me, most of my business, whether it's the candles or the media, most of my marketing is done word of mouth or face to face. And so my success does not match up to my social media followers at all. Like 99% of my contacts are not on social media. It's me going in and walking into a place and actually talking to that person. And that's huge for me because then I get that personal connection as well.
Yeah, which that's definitely a change in the way things used to be, though, because I mean, my dad, I remember when my dad was, you know, when I was just a baby, my dad started a woodworking business, and he made little wooden toys, and he would go out to all the trade shows and all the fairs and everything, and he would make a killing. But, you know, back in the 80s, it's like, where you can't put that online. You can't do anything. You can't have a follower base. And so in instances like Brendan, it's like he's got a lot of in-person stuff because he does photography and videography and all that kind of stuff. So he actually has to go to these people, which means most of them are local. You know, when he's around in town, he can talk to real estate agents. He can talk to, you know, clients for photos and stuff like that. But it's not very easy for him to just get out and sell a thing to a bunch of, you know, thousands of followers and stuff like that. So that's where I really like the fact that you have created this thing. And I say you because there's not many people doing it like you. I haven't really seen it before, but it's just this whole vlog experience that you have with your business, and not only showing somebody how something is made, but showing a face to the products that are being made. And it really just allows people to think, wow, this isn't made by a machine. This is made by a dude who has a family, a human being that actually cares about this thing. And this is his baby. This is his thing that he loves to do. And when I buy a piece from him, I can feel the love that went into this thing, from the actual product to the packaging to everything that you have going. And your YouTube channel really, really captures that. So
thanks everybody for taking the time to tune in today. We know your time is valuable, so we tried to keep this episode short. But if you'd like to watch additional parts of today's interview, head on over to patreon.com/coffeewithcreators and join our team today. We want to thank Parker from Stock and Barrel for taking the time to join us today. For more info on him, his company, and his family, head on over to stockandbarrelco.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Remember to subscribe and click the bell to get notified whenever we post a new video. Have a great day.